My name is Willie Knighten Jr., named after my father.
Willie Lee Knighten Sr.
How long have you been a pastor?
Pastor, 41 years at 2 churches. 39 here at Northwestern, 2 years at Friendly.
Born and raised here in Toledo, the oldest of 4. Private schooling, believe it or not, for the first, 8 years of my life. Preschool, kindergarten, 1st through 6th. And then my father had lost his job and had to go to public school.
I tell you what, Will was always smart, very smart. But he just happened to choose another route instead of the route that I would love for him to take. But by me working so and going to school, I couldn't be there all the time.
It was then that I got introduced to the street life. Started drinking and smoking weed immediately, with the gang life. It was just too much. And I found myself incarcerated. I found myself expelled, no education. And I turned 18 in Cuyahoga Hill Boys School. Did 6 months. I came home like, I'm gonna do right. But I didn't. A childhood friend of mine was selling drugs, and we partnered up. It just went off from there.
Everyone we talk to on the street, the name, comes up. Willie Knighten, Short Dog.
Police say a Chinese-made assault rifle and a 12-gauge shotgun are the weapons of choice of reputed Toledo gang leader Willie Knighten.
I was too tough. To me, it was fun. To me, it was being part of the in crowd. The drugs, it was just a lot of drugging. I started to snort cocaine, and that made me feel invincible. Thought I was Scarface. Before I know it, I was back in prison. And this time I was back in prison. It was for 18 years minimum to life. This was the one that really, really changed my life. 1996, there was a shooting that happened, and it went unsolved for 6 months. The 5th of December, gang task force detective who knew me very well, he just rolled up and said, "Hey man, I gotta take you in for murder." I said, "No, you don't. You know I ain't killed nobody." He looked at me, he said, "I gotta take you in." And they arrested me. When I went down there, I said, "I ain't did nothing. Get my lawyer." So I never talked to the police. I was arraigned and then sent upstairs.
I went down to visit him at the Lucas County Jail. And he said, "Dad, I didn't do that." I said, "Come on, Will." I just believe he did, because he was already out there doing everything else. He begged them, he pleaded with them to give him a polygraph. So they told him, the only reason we'll give you one if your parents pay for it. So I paid $600 out of my own pocket. And they had a specialist come down from Detroit. He passed it flying colors.
A discovery, they said it was me and supposedly 2 to 3 other men. I said, well, when they get to 2 or 3 other men, they're gonna have to let me go. That wasn't their plan. They never wanted to get anybody else. And so I went down solely in a car that I was supposedly driving and shooting at the same time, basically.
I used to come over here. I used to beat with them. I used to do a lot of stuff. But that day it wasn't me. And I went in the car. I didn't do it. And once I got arrested for it, they whole hood knew it wasn't me.
My attorney told me to waive my right to a jury. His reason was, listen, this prosecutor is very, very good, and he will trick a jury. But the judge will see that this is all a lie. And so I said, sure. And on my 3rd day of trial, he looked at me and said, "Are you ready to go home?" I said, "Absolutely." But I didn't go home. Judge sentenced me to 18 years to life for 1 count of murder. Then he sentenced me to 10 to 25 years for 1 count of attempted murder. And the gun specifications, which carried 3 years. It became so depressing in the county jail that when the judge found me guilty, I asked to be sentenced right then and there because I couldn't do no more time in the county jail. And so I went to prison. Sent me to Lebanon, Ohio, which was at that time in the 90s was wild and very, very dangerous. And so those first few years in prison, I denounced my gang ties over an incident that happened. Got into it in the gym with a guy, and I plotted to eventually have him moved over to my block because we're going to get him out of here. We're going to life flight him. So when I got at the hole, there was 3 guys in my cell with knives. And they was like, give us a green light, we kill him. So one of the older homies, he said, listen, man, don't you want to go home? I said, yeah, I'll get there. He said, not if you have something done to this man. He said, one of them boys going to snitch, period. One of them going to save themselves, whether it's today or 5 years from now. He said, man, what happened, happened. That's your fault. Nothing happened. It made sense. So I eventually transferred to Toledo, the new prison. Yeah, it was great getting to Toledo.
Lebanon, it was such a long way. I hate driving there. I'm the kind of guy, I don't care to drive, not a long distance. My son, so I had to visit him. You know, wherever he went, we visited him. And I was happy when he came here to Toledo. That ain't nothing, you know. He up there 5, 6, 8 minutes to see him.
I had tons of visits. I lived in the visitors. I told my dad and my mom, y'all can't come visit me no more together. I got to split up. You take one day, you take the next. When I got to Toledo Correctional, I walked in my cell that was assigned to me. There was a guy sitting on my bed. I said, he's somebody. It was the warden. And he introduced himself, and he asked me, who are you? And I said, excuse me, sir? He said, who are you that the mayor and the chief of police would tell me not to let you come? And so I told him I'm an innocent man in prison. At one time, I was a gang leader. I said, I'm a Christian now, and you won't have no problems out of me. And he let me know, okay, I'm watching you. I became his leader. I became a mentor in Toledo prison, and he could count on me. After 15 months, an incident happened, and me and a guy, we tore the block up. They called in the highway patrol. They had the pepper spray and maces, and they called the warden in. He just looked at me with disdain, and he said, you out of here. I said, a fight? He said, I don't care. You were my leader. You let me down. I held you to a higher standard, and you're out of here. My parents were devastated. My dad was like, when you gonna grow up? We can't be coming to visit you way down wherever you going. And so back to Lebanon I went. And I think I had 1 or 2 visits in the 2 years back in Lebanon. A lot of weight was taken off of me those 2 years because all the Toledo guys were in Toledo. So I didn't have to be the big homie. I could just be me. I didn't have to intercede, had no fights, not nothing. I didn't have not one write-up. After 2 years, I was transferred to Allen Correctional. First thing that I saw when I got to Allen were trees. I said, they have trees, real trees. And then we kept walking. I said, they have a putt-putt golf course. I said, I'm never messing this up. I said, I'm going home from here. I said, I'm going home from this prison. And when I went down to Allen, everybody from Toledo was there. They nicknamed me Good Brother. Good brother, good brother, good brother. I would write the judge every few months so he wouldn't forget me. And he didn't forget me. Yeah, he didn't forget me.
First at 4, a story that could not be more fitting for the week of Thanksgiving. A Toledo man gets clemency and is immediately released from prison after serving more than 12 years.
Yeah, Willie Knighten Jr. was convicted of murder in 1997, and since that time, the judge who found him guilty in a bench trial realized his ruling was a mistake and has been trying to get Knighten out of prison. Just yesterday, Governor Ted Strickland allowed his immediate release.
It seemed like a dream. It was a dream that was a long time coming. We know it's real, but I'm still just basking in the glory of it.
Despite the decade of his life lost in prison, neither Willie nor his family are bitter.
Love y'all, man. It's serious behind it, man.
They are actually thankful for Judge Scow.
There were so many obstacles in his way, but he never gave up. In 2000, he called me back to his courtroom and said, Mr. Knight, don't give up. The wheels of justice turn slow, but they're turning. He said, I'm going to help you any way I can.
A few years ago, back in 2020, when COVID came, I received a call. And this guy said, Mr. Knight, you don't know me. He said, but I know you, and let me tell you how. My name is Jose Torres. At the time of your petition to the governor for your release, I worked for the Ohio Parole Board. There were 2 piles of petitions. one pile that will be seen by the parole board, then the governor, and one pile that did not make the cut. Your petition was in that pile. He said, but just this day, I was curious. And so I reached into the pile and I pulled one out and it was yours. And as I read it, he said, something made me reach out to this judge. He said, I'm certain now that it was divine intervention. He said, I just knew that when I tried to contact this judge, that he would tell me, I don't remember this case. It was almost 13 years ago. He said, but it was just the opposite. He said, the judge told me this case has weighed heavily on my heart for all these years. He said that him and the judge spoke for over an hour. And just before he hung up, he said, Your Honor, would you be willing to put in writing what you just shared with me? The judge faxed over a letter to the parole board saying he made a mistake. And I was innocent. And 2 months later, the judge died. And Jose Torres had sent that letter to the parole board, who changed their unfavorable recommendation and took it out of that pile and put it into that pile. I was called down to the captain's office. They told me that I was being released the next day. So this was overnight. So me not knowing, here I was serving life on Monday, and Tuesday I was free. Best feeling in the world. And I've been home now 15 years and 10 days. Just celebrated my 15th year.
Have you ever received news that would change your entire life forever? Well, I have. So let's go back to the early to mid 90s when I was an up-and-coming Rhodes Scholar. Y'all don't buy that? Okay. I was a young 40-ounce drinking, blunt smoking, crack cocaine dealing gang banger around the city.
Since his release, Knighten says he hasn't steered away from the path to do good.
Like, I made it a decade and I stuck to my word. I haven't done anything illegal, no street activity, no gang banging, no drug dealing, nothing.
Life after release has been a joy, and I love it. I love the work I do. I still go back in the same prisons that I did time in.
Just in the last couple of weeks, he has moved into a building downtown with his organization, Above and Beyond Care. It's designed to help past criminals with their mental health.
Now I have an agency, and I'm a contractor. And so what I do is I help the men coming out of incarceration reacclimate themselves and get back on their feet.
2022, Governor Mike DeWine issued a full pardon. To this day, he maintains his innocence.
I didn't commit the crime. I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with it. And that's just the facts.
I still go back in the same prisons that I did time in. One time I went back in for fatherhood. I was a facilitator for the Ridge Project. So I did the Tyro Dad. And so I would go in and teach and facilitate. You know, most of my fathers, a lot of them are not criminals. They just have undiagnosed mental health, untreated substance use disorder, and they end up in prison.
In the last year, he's received some good news.
I received a full board hearing from the Ohio Parole Board, in which they voted 8-2 in favor that our current governor, DeWine, would grant me a full pardon.
13 ABC caught up with Governor Mike DeWine last night while he was campaigning in Toledo. When we asked about Knighten, the governor said this.
I would have to check on that.
And I also go down there for reentry. So any reentry fair for the gentlemen who have less than a year to the streets. I would go down there, make a connection, give them my card, tell them to reach out to me when they get home. I get calls all day. I got about 6 right now I'm looking at. But that's what I do. There are always people that want to instill hope and love and support in our youth. Somewhere, whether it's at home, whether it's a community center, whether it's a church, whether it's somebody that's in the neighborhood. There's always role models doing the right thing. We just need to look. Yeah, at one time they counted me out, but now they count on me. and I'm gonna make sure they continue to count on me.
I was going through something and the Lord said that you're going through. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So much bigger than the situation. Oh, come on. That you face every day. Just stand still. I wanna love you. I can love you. Cause I'm glad I can make it all. Let him come into your life. He'll make it all right. He'll make everything all right. He will love all of your hurt away. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. You got to give him a chance.